We got Marlena, aka Looney from Pacoima. Thank you for coming today, Marlena.
Thank you for having me.
You've got a remarkable story, but let's bring it back to when you were a youngster and you got put on the set. Tell us a little bit about your mentality at that time in your life.
I was so young, I didn't realize. I loved being a gangster. I loved being a Chola.
Right.
Everything about the lifestyle, I loved it. And when I met my neighborhood, it's just like, it just fit right in. You know what I mean? And they embraced me, because I didn't feel loved as a kid. I didn't feel like I was wanted, you know? And it goes back to, where my home life, but believe it or not, I came from my mom and dad are still together, but it was my brothers and sisters that gave me a hard time growing up.
Right, and they were your half brothers and
Half
sisters.
brothers and sisters, yes.
And they were always jealous that you were daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your mom didn't really, she was there, but you guys were in conflict a lot.
Right, all the time, because she felt like her kids weren't getting the love that I got, and that's understandable because I get that. I'm a mom today and I understand.
And you have 7 kids.
I have 7 kids.
That's crazy.
Yep. It is crazy when you think about it. But by the time I was 22, I had 4 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were a young mom.
Very young mom. Very young mom. Because when I jumped into the game about maybe like 14, 15, and me and my best friend at the time, we always ran together. And then, I always kicked it with my homeboys. Always, always, always. And I was just like, I was always the only girl amongst nothing but a bunch of cholos. You know what I mean? And it wasn't no thing to me because that was just life,
Our audience is global and they might not understand the whole chola thing. They sometimes there's a misconception that, oh, if you're a homegirl, you're getting passed around the homies. But
yeah, no, that wasn't the case for me. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? It was hood rats that came to the neighborhood that I would try and run them out. You know what I mean? Because it was just like, sometimes it was time for them to be around and sometimes it wasn't.
Right.
But
you were going on missions you were a homegirl.
I was with my homeboys all the time, yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, drugs are a big part of your story.
Oh, yeah.
And when did you start, hitting the pookie?
Well, when in the hood, we always smoked frios. We smoked sherm sticks all the time, you know what I mean? And it was a drug that I fell in love with at the time. And then
Tell our audience what a sherm stick is.
Sherm stick it's I don't even know what it's made from, to be honest. I can smell it right now just thinking about it, and it's dipped in a cigarette, a menthol cigarette, and it gets it wet, and then you smoke it.
The name a lot of people throw around is PCP, right?
PCP, definitely.
And how does PCP make you feel? Describe the feeling.
Like a zombie, you just can't even move. You're just like immobile, It affects people differently, but for me, that's what it did for me.
Right. You always hear the stories of the guy smoking PCP and throwing like 10 cops off him.
Yeah, I had one of those homeboys that he did that. He was freaking nuts. He was a kook. He was. He didn't get no fucks, dude. He was from another neighborhood, not my neighborhood, Pacoima, but man, oh man, he was crazy. He did a lot of bad things in his life.
But it didn't make you crazy. It made you just numb.
No, it numbed me out. It zonked me out.
It's like an opiate high kind of.
Yeah.
Right. And then what progressed after that?
After that, I did speed, and then I fell in love with that. I liked being up. I liked being awake. Because, you could just kick it longer. You know what I mean? And then when I met my first baby's dad, he introduced me to the pookie.
Right. And you told me, I remember you saying that you didn't realize you were an addict. It was like the frog in the boiling water.
It's true. It's so true because when I first started getting high with my baby dad, we were living in and out of hotel rooms, and I was always, snorting it, you know what I mean? And that was always a problem. But when I, decided to start smoking it, it just kind of took over my entire being. I was never the same person after that.
And were you smoking it when you were pregnant?
With my last, I did. With my first 3, I didn't. But with my last, I was just beyond addicted, and I was getting high pregnant.
Did that affect her birth?
No, he's a healthy.
Or his birth? Yeah.
He's a healthy boy.
Good, thank God.
He's a healthy boy, but he has his own issues of his own. But a lot of my kids do because of the way that things that I exposed him to. You know, I was high a lot of the time when they were little, and like I said, by the time I was 22, I was highly addicted, and I was in a very abusive relationship. You
Right.
know.
So abusive that an incident occurred that's beyond even most people can
Right.
fathom. Can you walk us through that incident?
Yeah. Well, I was with my ex, and he had a gun, and he was just like tormenting me for the previous 2 days, just putting it in my face, putting it in my side, you know. And I was so young and stupid, I didn't understand what was going on, you know what I mean? And I wanted out so bad, I just didn't know how, you know. And but 2 days later, he put the gun to the back of my head, and he pulled the trigger.
Oh my God. You're lucky to be sitting before
I am
us.
very lucky.
Yeah,
I am very lucky. But God had bigger plans. God
100%.
had bigger plans.
I know it's a painful thing to relive, but you you told the story where you're laying in the pool of your own blood
Yeah.
and you're looking at him going, did you really just do that?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy because when he shot me in the back of my head, and he was behind me, you know, and I remember blacking out, you know what I mean? And then I opened my eyes, and I remember asking God to forgive my sins because I wanted to go to heaven. I thought I was going to die, you know, and I was just like, you know, praying, God, give my mom and dad peace. I'm preparing myself to die, you know, and I'm just saying, you know, God, give my mom and dad peace, you know, be there for my children, you know, just praying to God that my life, after my life, everything stays okay, you know. And then not soon after, he just walked right into the room, and there was a window there, and he looked right out that window. He didn't even look in my direction. I'm like sitting down to the side, you know what I mean? And my leg is broken. He shot me multiple times,
My
but he
God.
only hit me twice. And I guess that's how blacked out I was. I don't even remember that happening. And he turned around and he looked at me, and he was shocked to see me alive. And he was like, what do we do? I was like, call an ambulance. He's like, but the cops are gonna come, what do we say? And we had to
jeez.
make up a fucking story so that I can make sure I leave that house alive. And meanwhile, he put me to the middle of the hallway, and I didn't realize my leg was broken and I couldn't walk, and I was in so much pain. I said, leave me here, you know. And then my 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old at the time, comes out, and she sees me laying there in the hallway full of blood. And I remember looking, I could still see her little face right now. And I didn't say a word to her. I didn't say nothing to her. I just looked at her. And, you know, I'm you know, I am very open with my kids, but with that moment, I couldn't even say anything to her. It was hard. I guess the shock of it all, you know, just her looking at me. And then I remember hearing her go back into the room, and I could hear her crying. And at that moment, he came, and we were trying to figure out a story of what to say so that he could get away with what he did to me. And he was like, let's say it's a drug deal gone bad, and we're coming up with this story, you know. And so we came up with that story, that drug deal gone bad, and they shot me. And then the ambulance fire department came, and they pulled me, and they had to pull me by my broken leg because, man, that shit hurt so bad. And they pulled me to the living room, and then they got me, prepared me, and they put me in an ambulance, and they took me to the hospital.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Is that bullet still in the back of your head?
And no, it's crazy because there's an X-ray where there's a bullet. You know, they say it missed every nerve. You know, it kind of hit the back of my neck, and they said if once it pushes itself out, you know, it might cause damage. You know, and then I pray to God, Lord, please let this not hurt me. You know, coming out. And about 2 weeks later, when I was getting ready to be discharged from the hospital, they took another X-ray, and they're like, we can't explain it. The bullet's gone.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, right? Yep, we can't explain it. We don't know what happened. We don't know how it happened. You know, we just know there's things that happen, and that medically we can't explain. But we know that it's gone because the X-ray shows it's gone.
And how does your neck feel today? Do you have
Perfectly fine. I have a scar in the back of my head, but
you have perfect mobility?
perfect mobility and everything's fine.
That's thank God. You know,
Absolutely.
praise God for that.
Yep.
Have you always been a woman of faith, Marlena?
Always, always. My mom and dad were pastors, believe it or not, growing up. You know, so I was always taught, you know, about Jesus and who he is and how important he is in your life.
So he was. You have the guardian angel looking after you.
Absolutely.
And you're a survivor.
Yes.
Even being shot in the head and the leg, you're trying to wiggle out of a cover story so that you could live another day.
Right, right. And what happened was how he ended up getting arrested. I was in the hospital and I'm laying, and then there's like, prepping me for this emergency surgery. I have blood coming out of my head, I have blood coming out of my leg, and there's like this big artery right here. I went to nursing school, for myself to nursing school. So there's these two arteries. You have them here, here, and here, and here. And once those arteries get severed, you have seconds before you stop the bleeding or, try to, before you're gone, And he missed that artery, and it's crazy. So the doctors are prepping for this surgery, right? And it's like everybody's doing something. It's absolute, complete chaos. It's an emergency. In a hospital room. I don't know if you've been in a hospital room in an emergency, but everybody's doing something, And then something in the back of my head told me, get your kids out of that house. And I was like, I was just ignored it. And then like, get your kids out of that house. Now I heard it louder. And I was like, you guys got to get my kids out of that house. Get my kids out of that house, please, now. They're like, no, ma'am, it's okay. Your kids are with your boyfriend. I said, you don't understand. He's the one who shot me. And it went from complete chaos to you can hear a pin drop in that room. All eyes were on me. They looked at me. There was a police officer in the room, and she said, ma'am, your boyfriend's the one that shot you? I said, yes, he's the one that shot me. Get my kids out of that house now.
My God.
And he was arrested at that moment.
And oddly enough, he only did 8 years behind
Yeah,
that.
because he PC'd up. He became a snitch. And I guess, there's no price on life when you become a snitch, I think that's bullshit. Because, that was my life. You know what I mean? And just because he wanted to swing a few names out there, I don't know what he said or who he said it to, but I do know he fucking snitched. And I guess my life was devalued to the police officers at that time because it went from life to 8 years.
Has he made any attempt to see your daughter?
We have 4 kids together, the 4 kids. And he wasn't allowed to contact me when I would get letters in the mail, or police officers would call me and say that he's getting out of jail because there was a lifetime restraining order. But I guess you have to renew it, and I never kind of renewed it. After a long time, I had to check in. But I was already living my life, doing my thing at the time.
Do you trust him taking the kids now?
No, he never. My kids want nothing to do with him.
Right.
Yeah, they're all older now. They're all adults in their 20s.
Okay. Yeah. And how did the daughter who saw mama laying out, bleeding out, how is she? Is she...
She put herself through college. She's making good money. She works at Northrop for Edwards.
Oh, that's a great
ending.
Yeah,
she's doing good for herself. She's very smart. All of them are really smart.
And she was able to process that trauma?
Not at the time. Obviously, she was still a little baby, but it wasn't until older that, I was like, you can't take back once things when they're done. You can't, you can't change it. You can't change, because before that I was an addict. So they had to deal with an addicted mom. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, you go back because, I had to go to recovery to get them back. The system took them. My mom and dad had them, but I didn't have them in my custody. And I had to go to Tarzana Treatment Center. And, I realized a lot about myself through that whole process. And I didn't realize, because like I said, you just grow up and you're thinking this is the way life should be. I'm 17. I haven't even been a teenager. I didn't go to prom. I didn't graduate. I graduated high school eventually, but I didn't do things kids that age should be doing at that time. I was kicking it with my homeboys, doing my thing. You know what I mean? And so it was, you grow up thinking that, drugs are a normal way of life. And then once you're addicted, and especially you're so young, you have no clue what's on the outside world and what your opportunities could be.
But it all felt normal to you in that moment, right?
Absolutely. It felt 100% normal to me, you know what I mean? And that's just how life was. And I grew up thinking that this is just the way it's supposed to be, because it became normal, it became learned behavior,
Right. And your children, thank God, they're safe, they're good.
Yeah.
And they're prospering.
Absolutely.
And do you still burden a lot of the guilt?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that guilt will never go away, because in order to change who you used to be, you have to face yourself, and you have to look at yourself in the mirror, and that shit gets real ugly real quick.
Right.
And as a woman, you go through more, I feel. Men go through things too, and I'm not discounting any men and what they go through. But as a woman, as a mom, I think we put ourselves through a little bit more. We beat ourselves down a little bit harder.
Right. If I could say this to you, Marlena, your past doesn't define who you are.
Absolutely not.
And you are a survivor.
Absolutely.
And
I'm a fighter.
You're a fighter. Mm-hmm. You have a fighting spirit. Mm-hmm. Where do you think you get that spirit from?
My grandmothers.
Tell us about your grandmother a little.
Wow. My grandmother, so I have my grandmother's on my mom's side. She dealt with children that were addicted, and they grew up addicted, and they were from two different neighborhoods. One was from San Fernando and one was from Pacoima, and so they grew up bumping heads, but they grew up addicted to heroin. Watching them addicted was super normal to me too. You know what I mean? Because nobody told me this wasn't a part of life. You know what I mean? And so I watched them nodding out, and I watched them, with rigs, and I've seen things growing up as a kid, and she was the type of woman that always pushed through. She always told me, Mija, no matter what happens in your life, you always got to get back up. You always got to keep going, man. You can't stop for nobody, nothing, And so that kind of like, just watching her be that type of woman, embedded into my mind that this is what you do. You fight. You keep going no matter what.
What's your advice to a woman who's in an abusive relationship right now that feels stuck in it? She's locked in this vortex. There's kids involved. She doesn't want to split up the family. What's your advice to a woman going through domestic violence right now?
There's always a way out. And there's always a moment in that time when you're going through something like that, when you're, getting beat, or, there's just in that timeline, there's always a moment where you're able to walk away. You can't think about it. You can't second guess yourself. You just have to do it. Do it for yourself and do it for your children.
Right. And, and to the men out there, if you feel you need to beat your wife or put hands on her, then she might not be the right woman for you.
Yeah. Well, like now, it won't, like now you have to be able to learn. They're cowards. You know what I mean? They feed off of that energy. You know what I mean? And now that I've evolved, I've changed, and I'm not the same person anymore. Like, I dare a motherfucker try to hit me today,
Right. Looney will come out.
More than somebody else will. But
Okay.
yeah, she's there, because I don't see that happening to me today. Not because I have a better life today, you know what I mean? But because I know how to deal with that kind of situation should it arise.
You believe in love still, and you're not jaded, so major respect to you for that.
Right.
Because a lot of women who've been through what you've been through hate men.
Right.
They don't want anything to
Right.
do with men.
Right.
Not all of us are bad.
I get it.
Right.
Yeah, but you have to change. You have to process what the fuck you go through in life. You know what I mean? You can't just go through life skimming by or bottling that shit up. You gotta process that shit. In order to process, you gotta seek help. You know what I mean? Whether it's in recovery or through therapy or however it is, you need help. You find that help because, there is definitely light on the other side of that tunnel. There's life there. There's peace there. There's hope there. There's joy there. There's laughter there. There's so much good on the other side of that tunnel. And not to say that bad shit doesn't happen once you're there, but there's more of the latter than what was in the past. You know what I mean? It's just there's more happiness out there for you. You just have to go find it, and it's not going to just fall in your lap. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for Tarzana Treatment Center, to be honest with you.
Right. And shout out to Tarzana Treatment Center. Yeah. They have helped so many people.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Our mutual friend, shout out to Mohawk Matt.
My boy.
Yeah, he's an example of a man who has fully not only become sober, but he's recovered.
Right.
Speak on the difference between sobriety and recovery.
Well, in sobriety, you learn to maintain clean time, one day at a time. You know what I mean? You go to meetings and you participate in your recovery that way. But, when you're in treatment, you got to dig deep. You know what I mean? You got to deal with not what's on the surface. And not to say the steps don't do that, because they're in recovery, they're in treatment, but it's on a deeper level. They deal with mental health there. You know what I mean? They deal with emotional health there. And for me, I had to really, really dig deep into face myself and realize the mother that I had become, because there were days my kids would eat cereal all day because I was too busy getting high. And that's just the reality of my story. Is that's the kind of mom I was, And as hard as it was to face that, I had to accept that. And if I wasn't willing to accept that, there was no way I was going to be able to change that.
Right. And you mentioned that the guilt of not being there for your kids. Do you feel that you're now trying to overcompensate for the love that you didn't provide them when they were young?
No, not really, not anymore. I used to at one point, but not anymore, because I love my children and they know I love them. And I've sat down with each and every one of them one at a time, and I've spoken to them, and I've opened up to them, and I helped them realize, that wasn't me, you know.
Right. And your 16-year-old daughter, you mentioned, she's going through it right now.
Yeah.
What's your advice to her? Like, how can you reach her? Because she's
Just,
little Marlene at 16.
She
right?
was at one point, you know what I mean? But things happen in her life that slowed her down, you know. But for the most part, just I'm here and I'm present.
How important is it to be present and live in the moment? Because we're always living, like when we're in the shower, we're on the freeway, we're in the office.
Right.
How do we live in the present? Do you have any skills?
Yeah, I do. You take a deep breath and you slow the fuck down, because I have kids and I have doctors and I have daycares. I gotta pick them up. I gotta be to work on time. I gotta drop her off at daycare. I gotta drop them off at elementary school, and I gotta make phone calls on the way there. And on the way home from work, I'm making more phone calls. And I'm doing so many things because I got a lot going on right now. But there's moments where you just have to just and look. I look at the sky because that's where my hope is, and just breathe, fucking breathe, and just take in wherever you're at the moment, whether it's in traffic and you're listening to a song or, you know what I mean? You just take a deep fucking breath.
Yeah. You don't even have time to do a Marlena day, do you?
Rarely, you know what I mean? But I have more now so than before because, my last 3 children from my ex-husband, he's beginning to show up in their lives because he was crazy addicted, but he's just a different type of addict.
What's his trip? Is he into the?
Oh, he was smoking heroin, I think, and yeah, but that's like a whole another can of worms. He's just turned into somebody that I don't even know anymore. The only reason I have to associate with him is because he's the father of my children. He's a good guy when he's clean. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
But who he became while he was this last run and the things that he did to try to affect my life just made me have no respect for him.
Yeah. Marlena, do you see a pattern that you might be drawn to men like that?
In a sense, yeah. But I live and I learn, and for the most part, having a man in my life at this moment, I have a chosen few. You know what I mean? Because I don't really want a commitment right now. You know what I mean? But I mean, there's a couple that I'm interested.
But can we find you just a square? Can we just?
I'm kind of talking to a kind of like a non-associate.
Yeah, it's time to just find a good boy. You've done the bad boy thing, and
Yeah.
it just is what it is. Have you found that through all the experiences you've gone through that having a relationship with someone's difficult? They might not understand what
well,
you...
what I find, the reason I find it difficult is because I'm an alpha female. You know what I mean? Like, I run my own show. You know what I mean? I'm independent. You know what I mean? I pay my own fucking bills, handle my own business. I drive my own car. You know what I mean? And I just handle shit myself. Like, if you're in my life, it's not because I need you there. It's because I want you there. And a lot of be crazy because being single, I meet a lot of guys that, they want to feel needed. And I don't fucking need you.
Right. There's a lot of men that want to find the wounded bird.
Yeah, and it's true. And then obviously me being independent and like I feel like I fix my own car. I'm my father's only daughter. He taught me how to change brakes, change oil. You know what I mean? So I could do a lot of things a lot of females don't do. You know what I mean? So I mean that's hard for insecure or
It intimidates
men.
insecure
Very
men.
intimidating. Like I could teach you how to do it, and they have so much pride. It's just like let me just fucking teach you. You know what I mean? It's not that fucking hard. But I mean a lot of guys can't handle that, and that's cool because I ain't for everybody. You know what I mean?
Never take a man's remote control.
Right.
But yeah, Marlena, your story, for a lot of people listening, you have to understand that a lot of people live a very selfish life, but you're raising 7 kids as a single mother.
Right.
So time is like super
Of
cherished.
the essence, exactly. But I've learned, to keep my kids' time to them. You know what I mean? If I'm with my kids, I'm with them. I don't want to be anywhere else but with them. You know what I mean? I do try and make time for the gym. I do try and make that little bit of time for myself, but for the most part, they bring out the most gentle side of me. You know what I mean? And when I'm at work, I'm who I am at work, but it's, you're when you're affiliated and that's who you are, you know, it's hard to be that other than something else other than that wherever you go, because it's in your heart.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Will you still kick it with the homeboys?
I still talk to them all the time,
Yeah.
frequently, yeah.
And I'm sure they're encouraging you to go.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
You know, my homeboys are very supportive now. You know what I mean? They're, you know, a lot of them don't gangbang anymore. They have their own kids. They have their own families. They do their own thing. You know what I mean? And they're very, very helpful. They became my brothers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I wasn't close to my brothers growing up. I'm still not really close to my real brothers, you know, but my homeboys are my brothers, and they've proven that to be fact, yeah.
Right. No, that's important to have that structure.
Absolutely.
Do you have a mentor now in your life, a sponsor, someone that helps you with your path of sobriety?
I'm not sober. I drink alcohol.
Check, please.
You know, I do. I don't. I'm not a. You know, see, that's saying some are sicker than others, and I'm not discounting that I was never a drug addict, because I, in fact, I'm a drug addict. You know what I mean? But you know, a lot of the reasons I didn't do the things I did was to support my ex. You know what I mean? Because I could drink alcohol right now and then not drink months from now.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's just my nature. You know what I mean? Some people can do that and some people can't. If you can't do that, good for you. But I can. Don't hate me for it.
No,
you know
that's
what I
fair.
mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be a hypocrite and go to meetings and tell you I'm doing one thing and you know, say I'm this person when I'm really not that person. You know, I wear my heart on my sleeve. This is who I am. You know.
But if you're skull crushing like 4 tequilas, do you crave scante or no?
No.
Okay.
Never
good.
again. I haven't touched that in the longest. I don't even remember the last time.
So that's a wrap.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that bone isn't connected to each other.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Not.
So you can socially drink. You probably
I can.
And you might have a
Totally.
bar in your house and you don't need to drink
I don't
it.
have a bar in my house because I have a 16-year-old who was wilding out at one point and she wanted to drink all my liquor. So
Right.
I just was like, fuck
You're
the
like,
liquor in
this
my
isn't
house.
Grey Goose,
That's
this
just
is
gone.
water.
Yeah. Mom always give me bottles. Nah, you just drink it now.
Yeah. So your alcohol was never your issue.
No.
And that's honest of you though to say, you know, like a lot of people, you know, they cap about the sobriety.
Right. Yeah, no, that's just never been me. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people take dirty cakes. I've seen people take dirty chips. I've taken dirty chips before. That's facts. You know what I mean? Because I was afraid to say I relapsed again because I was a chronic relapser. You know what I mean? At one point I almost had 5 years clean.
Wow.
And that's when my ex went out, and I kind of went out for a little bit with him. But we had a baby, and she was only like 4 months. You know what I mean? And I was like, dude, I can't go down this road with you anymore. Like I just can't. I can't do this anymore. You have to go. You know? And that's when he left, and then he just kind of spiraled out of control. This is Marlena Vasquez. You're watching Cinemills TV. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
So Marlena, tell us the burden of being a single mom, 7 kids. How do you balance that act?
So the first 4, they're in their 20s, and they live not with me. But I also have a 16-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Well, he just turned 6. But you know, with their dad being, you know, addicted and non-existent for a very long time in their lives, everything fell on me. You know, and as hard as it was and as difficult as it can be, you know, as a mom who has her head on her fucking shoulders, you know, you just gotta learn to push through. You gotta fucking show up no matter what, you know, shit don't stop just because you're struggling. You know what I mean? You just gotta fucking keep going, one foot in front of the other, every single fucking day. There's no time to cry, no time to fucking pout, no time to feel sorry for yourself, no time to go through any of that bullshit. You just gotta keep going. Wake up, you don't wanna go to work too fucking bad. You know what I mean? Oh, you don't wanna do this? Oh well, too bad. You know what I mean? You just gotta continue to keep going no matter what. And sometimes there's no times for deep breaths. You know, sometimes there's no time for that shit. You just gotta keep going, come home, cook dinner, clean, take up babies a bath, make sure they have clothes for tomorrow. You know what I mean? Make sure, put them to bed. Sometimes they don't want to go to bed. Sometimes they're sick. Sometimes you do that shit all by yourself. The shit gets heavy, but you can't let them see that either because you have to smile and laugh just like nothing's wrong, you know? And that shit's hard sometimes.
So you don't even have a shoulder to cry on?
I have friends.
Yeah.
I have friends. But when it's just me, I'm in my house and it's 8 o'clock at night and everybody's, you know, getting ready in their house and ready for bed, you don't want to bother anybody with your small little problems. You know what I mean? And my friends like, call me anytime, but no, this is my shit. I gotta carry this by myself. I can do it. You know what I mean? And I do, and I make sure that my kids have everything they need. You know, and 16 years old in this day and age, shit's expensive. Shit's expensive. Fucking shoes and clothes and Fashion Nova and this and that and all these other things that, you know, 16-year-olds like to wear, you know, and I don't want her to be the odd man out, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we're buying it,
Right.
you know what I mean? And we do, you know, Jordans, whatever else she wants, you know what I mean? As hard as it can be, I make sure I make it happen.
Right. And, you know, you and I talked about this, and same thing in New York. Every step you take's $100 in LA. There's to fill up your tank.
It's insane.
It's insane what's
It's
happening.
insane,
Yeah.
you know, and the struggles we're in LA, because I make good money working for the company I work for. I make really good money, but it's not good money in LA.
Right.
Not
Right.
good money in Southern California. It's just expensive, man.
Right. It's
Crazy.
It's expensive.
Yeah, you pay over $2,400 for a 2-bedroom. Small 2-bedroom, not even a really big one.
No, yeah.
Nice size, but still, like, crazy.
It's crazy. What are your thoughts about what's going on with kids these days and social media? It's getting weird out here now.
It really, really is. And I'm the biggest influence in my kids' lives. You know what I mean? Especially being a single mom. I have to show them the right way and the wrong way. Because if they don't learn it from me, they're going to learn it from somebody else. You know, and having a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and their brains are ever expanding. You know what I mean? I just try my best to teach them right from wrong as best that I can. You know, and my 16-year-old, I have to monitor what the fuck she does. I grab her phone when she's asleep. She has no clue. Well, now she does. Sorry, boo. But, you know, I grab her phone when she's sleeping, and I go through that motherfucker. I know everything that goes on in her life. I have her location is on my phone. So I know every move she makes, who she's with, where she's at all times. Because you can't trust anybody this day and age.
Right.
At all. It's crazy.
No, it's crazy. Imagine when we were growing up, if we had access to everything they have.
Fuck. I don't think it would live. It'd be crazy.
It'd be crazy. And
And
thank God cameras
hey,
weren't
that
on.
fool posted a picture of himself at Tacos El Oso. Let's go.
What are you cooking for the kids? What are you making?
Ooh, I make all kinds of shit. You know, if I want something, I'll even look up a recipe. You know, I have all the spices, everything I need. You know, because I love to cook. I love to cook for my kids. They love to eat it too. Like, Mom, this is good, and I get joy in that. You know what I mean? I get joy in them opening the refrigerator and grabbing the juice box. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have that luxury as a kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? And me as a single mom to be able to provide that shit is a big deal to me.
It's a big
Really
deal.
big deal to me. You know, because they have fruit snacks. They have, you know, we go to the market and Pavilions they have their own little cart. You know, they store whatever the fuck they want in that cart. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna say no. Yeah, go ahead, get it. You know.
Right.
And the privilege that I be able to do that. It's a big deal to me. Being a
Right.
single mom, even though I struggle, I make sure they have what they need and
Right.
want.
When you look at your 16-year-old daughter, she's in prime time, right? She's doing her thing.
And she's beautiful, drives me nuts.
And yeah, you know, so how do you, what's your advice to her in terms of, you know, what's out here, you know, with,
Make better choices.
right.
Finish school. You know, because if I knew then what I know now, I'd have a master's degree. And not to say that I can't, because there's so many addicts everywhere graduating, bachelor's, master's, you know what I mean? But I just would have done it right out of high school. I wouldn't have wasted any time. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, probably would have been well off now.
Did you lay down your story to her? Does she know all the trials?
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, you have to go through your own experience in life, you know? And unfortunately, she chose, you know, to go into left field. You know, as far left as she went, you know, I tried to pull her in, I tried to pull her in, I tried to pull her in and tell her, no, that's not the way, that's not the way. And, you know, she had her own experience, she had to learn the hard way, you know, and that's just kind of how it happened for her, you know, because she did want to join a gang at one point. You know, I told her, no, absolutely not. I did everything I could possibly do to make sure that that didn't happen. Eventually it didn't happen, but, you know, some people are made for that shit and some people aren't. You know what I mean? She, you know, got put to the test on some shit and she didn't pass. And that's on her. You know what I mean? Because out there, she's her own man. As much as I would die for her, you know what I mean? And she has to learn the hard way. She has to learn her own lessons.
So you've got a tough love kind of way of parenting.
Yeah, I do. With my little ones, it's so gentle because they're so little. You know what I mean? And they wake up asking for hot dogs in the morning. You know what I mean? Because they're so small. But my 16-year-old, she cops an attitude, and it's hard being a single mom because I can't just call her dad because her dad's so stupid and selfish sometimes. I can't just share shit with him. You know what I mean?
Right.
He makes it all about him. Very narcissistic.
Right.
You know, but it's just to the point where, you know, I've accepted the fact that I'm doing this alone.
Does he break bread with you or no?
No. I mean, no, not anymore. I mean, it's an off and on kind of thing, and I've learned to just depend on me for everything.
So you never went through the courts to get child
well, I filed for divorce. I'm in the process of filing for child support. So as soon as all that ball gets rolling, because obviously it's a long process, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I will be getting paid because he went back to work soon. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, the state of California doesn't play with that.
No, I know that.
But yeah, so hopefully he'll shoot you some paper and help
Right.
out, so you're not carrying the whole load yourself. I
Right.
mean, that's just not fair.
It's not fair, you know. And I told him, I said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to give me some money on your own, or we can go to the court. Because if we go to the courts, they're going to fuck you, and you're going to be broke all the time.
Right.
You know. And so, I mean, he made his choice. So now his bed's made. He's about to lay down in that motherfucker.
Right. Marlena, what we respect about you is you've never played the victim mentality, even
Right.
though you've gone through so much bullshit.
Right.
So hats off to you.
Thank you.
And if there's a single mom watching this that wants to reach out for some advice, could you lace up some game for that person?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and not just that, but I know, you know, because I did lose my kids, you know, to not lose my kids, but I went through the system DCFS to get my kids back. You know what I mean? I've been through multiple things in my life, you know, and I know there's a lot of resources and a lot of avenues to go down to help them, and I did that for a while after I got my kids back to help multiple girls get their kids back, and some did, some didn't, but that's their choice, you know. But I showed them the right way, and I held their hand through that motherfucker, because sometimes you just need somebody to hold your hand through shit. Sometimes when you're alone, you feel like there's nobody. One person makes a big difference. You know what I mean? And if I can be that one person, I will be.
Right. Shoot out your social for someone that wants to tap in.
My Crazy Vida 13 on Instagram, Marlena the One on TikTok, and then Marlena Vasquez on Facebook.
Right on. Marlena, thank you so much for coming
No
through
problem.
today.
Thank you for having me.